What's happening tonight, fans? Jeff Sharon along with head coach Todd Dagenais, and this is Holding Court. We thank you for joining us this week as UCF begins conference play, full conference play in the schedule, and we finished up the preseason with two big matchups, one in conference and one in state, but out of conference. And Coach, first of all, give me your total evaluation of this past weekend as we now wrap up the preseason and head towards full conference play.
Yeah, I think we had a very specific set of goals with this preseason, and the goal was simply to put ourselves in position to finish high in the conference and be on the board Selection Sunday. And I think with a 9-3 preseason record, 8-3 out of conference, we've done everything that we needed to do. We had to have a marquee win. We got the marquee win over USC. We had to have significant wins. We got that over Pitt and over Furman. And while we may have left a couple on the table, coming out 8-3 was exactly where we needed to be now to set us up to give us a chance to be on the board on Selection Sunday.
We had a split this weekend in the home tournament. We started out with UTEP, and Eric Peterson said this was as talented a UTEP team as we've ever seen come through here, and we handled them pretty good in that match. And how good was it to get that first conference match under the belt?
Oh, it's priceless. We spent the whole week preparing for UTEP. I mean, really, every ounce of energy we put into UTEP this week, and every time allotment that we had for practice we put into UTEP this week, because you have to win your conference. You have to be high in your conference, and really the conference match completely trumps any non-conference match that you have on your schedule. And so we put all our work into that, and I thought it paid off. I thought our team did a nice job of stabilizing when they needed to, and we did what we needed to do to knock off a pretty hot team. And I think UTEP's a pretty hot team.
Yeah, not only are they a hot team, but they're also going to improve considerably as the season goes on. I thought they were a very, very talented team. Don't let that score of that match fool you. Now, the final of the tournament this week had us against FIU, and you said we only spent so many. When you throw all the eggs into the conference match, which rightfully so, there's only so much time that you then spend on whoever it was that we were going to play, and we actually didn't know heading into it, because the way the tournament worked out was it would have been JU or FIU coming out of the winner of that match. But nonetheless, the fans were treated to an absolutely thrilling match between these two squads. Tell me what you took away from that match against FIU that went 5.
Well, I think what we found there is that we have to work on some of our mental toughness things when matches are close. And we had opportunities, the countless opportunities to put the match away. I think we had at least 7 swings to win the match.
Wow.
And we couldn't convert on any of them. And no one feels worse about that than the players that took those swings or the mistakes that happened along the way. And it's something that we've been focusing on this week of practice. We're putting ourselves in those same exact situations, and it's almost a shade of where we were a couple years ago, where we had a hard time closing out some of the close sets. And it's just think like a winner. We're not playing to keep the game going, we're playing to win, and we're going to get through that. We're not nearly where we were 2 years ago in that situation, and it's important as a coaching staff and as a team that we snap out of that right away, and it's already done. I think that's already taken care of. We're back in practice, we're putting up the kind of numbers that we need to put up again, and so it's not even a concern anymore. But it was a good lesson for us, in that you can't allow another team just to beat themselves. You really have to go out there and seize every opportunity you have, and there's going to be situations all year long where we're going to be at 24-24 with a chance to seize the opportunity, and we're going to need to do that. And so it was kind of a good time to kind of refocus and recenter on that part of the mental game for us, closing things out.
Give me your letter grade for the preseason overall.
God, I'm often tough on this, that.
Yeah.
I mean, how can we give anything less than an A- or maybe even A? We're 8-3 non-conference, 9-3 overall, 44 RPI.
Yeah.
All, I'm guessing, are pretty high in terms of our Division I history anyway. So, boy, I'm tough. Maybe A-, just because we did leave a couple out there, but we beat the number 10 team in the country. And we accomplished everything that we need to accomplish. That's the thing. You talk about having significant wins, and the win over USC completely trumps any of the other losses on the schedule, because that's something that the committee can go, oh wow, they did that, they deserve a reward for that. And so, while we would have liked to have been 10 9-2 or 11-1. 9-3 is pretty good considering we played the toughest schedule we've probably ever played it as a Division I program.
Yep. So as we move now toward a full slate of conference matches, and we start off, well, actually we already started off, of course, with UTEP, but now we head into the full conference weekend where we start going that Friday, Sunday, and just that drumbeat happens now all the way through the end of the fall. So we're starting out on Friday night, 7 o'clock. SMU comes to town. The Mustangs are also revealing some new things that you were telling me about earlier.
Yeah, well, they're picked to finish second in the conference, and I know at times they feel like they probably struggled a little bit, and they're making the necessary changes in their lineup. Looks like they're going to probably run a 6-2 against us, and that's probably what they should be doing. And so Coach Seifert does a great job of making sure her team's putting up the points that they need to put up. So that's going to be a great match for us, and those kinds of opportunities. We want to finish in the top 3 in our conference, but we're going to have to do it by beating SMU. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, we get it right away, right off the bat, right off the heels of that tough loss, and it's exactly where we want to be right now. We want to be able to contend with these top teams right away, and it gives us a chance to do that this weekend.
And you talk about finding out where we fit in terms of the grand scheme of the top teams in the conference. Like you said, number 2, picked preseason number 2 in Conference USA, SMU on Friday, followed by Sunday afternoon, 1 p.m., the Tulsa Golden Hurricane coming knocking at the venue. We all know about Tyler Henderson and how great a player she's been throughout her career at Tulsa. What kind of a match are you expecting from the Golden Hurricane?
Yeah, exactly what we've seen from them in the past. It's a healthy heaping of Tyler Henderson, mm-hmm. and she's got a nice supporting cast around her again, because obviously one player in volleyball can't do it. Yeah. But she's going to take 50% of their swings, and she's going to put up 30 kills against us. And we have 2 choices. Either we have to stop her and stop everybody else, or we have to slow her down and try to score more points. Yeah. And it's going to probably be another one of those kinds of matches like Florida International, where everything's going to be decided by 2-point. We just have to make the swing when it counts. And so we're not going to feel bad. She's going to come in there and she's going to bounce some balls up into the rafters, and it counts as 1 point. And just like we talked about when we played earlier in the year, we just have to find another way to score a point. And so you want to know where you are. Let's find out the first full weekend of conference where we are. And it just sets the tone for the remainder of the year. It's a great weekend for us to get our confidence back.
Now, I think that, like you said, come on out to the venue this weekend, because it's going to be a huge weekend of volleyball. And some of the best, and, pound for pound, 2 of the best teams in Conference USA coming into the venue this weekend. Again, Saturday at 7, SMU, and then Friday at 7, SMU, Sunday at 1 o'clock, Tulsa. Now, we step out and we look at the national picture, Coach, and things continue to solidify. Now, we told you at home, of course, how important it is that, now in particular this part of the program, when we talk about the national picture, these are things that we want to keep an eye on, because we want to keep an eye on the Pac-10 because of SC. We want to keep an eye on the Big East because of what Pitt's done. Some of the other national programs as well, Michigan State, who we played earlier this year. What were some of the big national highlights that you saw from this past weekend?
I thought the first one this weekend is Cal played Stanford for the battle at number 1 and number 2, and Cal came out on top. Mm-hmm. But I understand they may have suffered a significant injury that could hold them back for a couple weeks. Now that just opens up the door to be murky and muddy on the national scene like we've seen for the last couple weeks. But Cal is going to be number 1. Stanford's number 2. Washington was number 3 or 4. They lost. USC beat them in 3 up at Washington. So USC will climb back up the polls now.
That's good news for us.
That's right. It is good news for us. But it opens up the door now for Penn State, Illinois, some Minnesota, some of these other teams to kind of slowly get their way back up there into the top 5. So. Cal's a consensus number 1, but if that injury is what people said it is, that could change things a little bit. They're going to have to face some adversity, and it just really opens the door for some other schools to get back in there. Other than that, your top 10 are your usual suspects until proven otherwise. Florida is going to start climbing their way back up into things. And but it's nice, we've seen a lot of those teams. Michigan State is still working their way up there as well, and I think they're going to have a good conference season. So we just need all those guys to run like rabbits. We talked about that week before, and RPI points are being accrued every time those guys win. So right now we are the biggest fans of USC and Pitt and Michigan State as we could ever be.
Yeah, we'll be sending them Christmas cards, hopefully, too. Now, when you look at the national picture, is there a team out there that you think the nation is maybe sleeping on? Is there a team that you say, wow, watch out for them, they're going to start causing some havoc?
Is there a team? Illinois, I think, is probably
Yeah.
the one. Yeah, I think Illinois. They're deep, they're talented, they're athletic, they're extremely well coached, and that's probably the one team from beginning to end that could improve significantly. You talk about improved teams. Penn State, as hard as it is to say it, can Penn State really be improved? They've got a freshman setter who's already doing a nice job, but she's going to get it about halfway through the year, and they could be right back to being the class of the country again. So, hopefully for us, USC is one of those teams. They go through a little bit of adversity in their preseason, but they step it up at the end. But those teams that are so well coached and have the athletes, that have the experience, have the ability to improve vastly from match 1 to match 30. And those are the teams that are going to start showing their true identity once we hit the Ides of October, where things get difficult.
As we finish up, there's a lot of speculation that, of course, is flying around about conferences and alignment. And everyone talks all the time about football, and obviously nothing is finalized with anything. But in general, when you look at the nationwide picture, how do you think that this really affects volleyball? All of this uncertainty that's happening.
I think what could end up happening is, if we go the direction of the super conferences, you're going to end up with 64 to 80 teams with a lot of resources. Mm-hmm. And you're going to end up with 230 teams without the same resources. So it could really dramatically change those sports that are dependent on the revenues from football and from television. Volleyball, tennis, golf, a lot of those kinds of sports. I mean, it could greatly affect things. And, hopefully, if that comes down the pipe, you got to think about program survivability, and you just hope that you're one of the 64 or 80 teams that has access to that kind of revenue. Because it's going to be a lot more difficult to be successful if you're not. Now, I think volleyball still continues to be a national sport. That has the ability probably to withstand super conferences. And you're going to still see some teams from us. Right now, we see non-BCS teams in the top 25.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's going to change, because there are a lot of girls playing volleyball across the country. There's more girls playing volleyball than there are going to be super conference teams, if that's the way it goes. So it's going to change some things a little bit. Right now, 12 teams basically have a chance to win a national championship, and maybe 20 teams have a chance to go to the Final Four. And the super conferences could potentially limit that even more, because some of those 12 and some of those 20 are not in the club, so to speak. So I don't know where it's going to go, but it could have an adverse effect on those teams that aren't there. But then again, it's very possible that the teams that are on the rise are going to still continue to be on the rise, and they're still going to be able to compete with the so-called BCS teams.
Our hope is that no matter what happens, that it continues to improve the state of volleyball, not just here in the state of Florida, but also throughout the country. Now, once again, quick reminder for you, 7 o'clock Friday night, UCF against SMU at the venue, followed by Sunday at 1 o'clock at the venue, UCF against Tulsa. Be there or be square at the venue for 2 huge conference games. Coach, thanks for joining us.
My pleasure. Thank you.
And this has been Holding Court with Todd Dagenais. We'll catch you again next week.